And if I screw it up, hell, I'll fix it. Yeah, it's coming right on out. All right, welcome back to the garage, everyone. I'm not sure what we're going to get done this weekend, but I've got a few odds and ends that are just bugging the dickens out of me, and I need to get them done, so let's get to it. So first up, this thing here is just really annoying. You can't store it anywhere, and anytime you set it on something, it falls down and makes a big noise. So we're going to get this newly de-rusted and de-painted front anti-sway bar reattached to our old R107. And so let's get her done. We got the Molly bushing kit here, so let's dig in here and see what we can find. There's one. There's two. And let's see here. It's gonna go like that. So flat surface goes towards the front of the car. All right, now. This is just going to be so much fun. Got our brackets de-rusted and painted up. They look pretty nice. Well, except for that one. You know what I'm going to do? Yeah, that one too. I'm going to get some string. Hey, there's some string. Right there on the ground. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's never done this before. You darn tootin'. I think my choice of string was flawed. All right, at least it'll stay up there and I want to hold it all the time. And let's see if we can get these main brackets on here. This is going to be a challenge, I think. Wow, how is that going to work? This bracket in place here. I'm going to get some of this Mother's VLR up in there. It usually works well for lubricating, things when you're trying to get seals in place and all that kind of jazz. It's going to take some doing. Yeah, that VLR lubricant is, it's not a lubricant, but it works like a lubricant in this case. All right, that was a lot of a struggle. Got some more string up there and supported it. And there's a channel here on the back side of this frame that you can't see. It's got two flanges of metal that poke back like that. And the rubber has to go in between that and ride up and down it. so yeah, and then I use the VLR to lubricate the rubber and the bracket to get them to slip together. I think I still need to do a little more tapping. So the rubber is entrapped in between in this channel. So I can tap the bracket from left to right with a hammer to get the bolt holes to line up. I think we're about there. And then we just use the hardware to compress the rubber into the bracket. All right, we're going to leave that like that, loosen, and then we're going to go over and move to the other side. The cool thing about this is, this is a rubber and vinyl conditioner, so it can't really hurt anything. And it'll dissipate at some point. All right, we're going to move on to the other side. I got the bracket in place up there. I tapped it into place. And where's my other bolt? There it is. I'm going to need a wrench. We got everything started. I'll get you over here and show you what it looks like if you've never dealt with this before. So there's the bracket, there's the rubber embedded in there, and that's the top bolt, and that's the bottom bolt. And you can see where getting them started can be a little tricky because the rubber is brand new and very supple. And so yeah, I've got the other one started as well. And this old car looks a lot better than it did when I got started on it. Yeah, I got to scratch my paint off there. I got to put some more paint on that. But anyway, if you recall from the previous videos, this engine bay was basically one big solid piece of rust. So I disregard all the stuff dangling around. Those are the fuel return line and fuel supply line. And I've got to get those bent up properly. And they terminate right up there, right next to the brake booster. All right, so let's go ahead and put the end links on now. You got one big long bolt, and you got 4 of these really thick washers and 4 of these bushings and a single locking nylock nut. Anyway, so there's a hole right there, and the perch for the end link is right here. So you go ahead and take your bolt, put a washer on it, slip a piece of rubber over that, slip it up through the hole, put another piece of rubber on it, and then another washer. And then you got this spacer, pretty standard end link type stuff. And then you get your other person, imaginary, or your third arm, or whatever you have to help you, because you don't have but 2 hands and 2 pockets. One of them has a cell phone in it. So yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. Yep. We're ready to go up into the sway bar now. So we slip that in there like that. I don't know how the hell that's going to work. Well, I can't put another piece of rubber up there. How am I supposed to do that? These rubbers are too thick. If I put that other rubber up there, you can't put the nut on it. What's going on? I don't know what's going on. Man, this thing turned out to be a real pain. You got to compress this rubber to make all this nonsense work together. Ooh, like that. And we get to try again. All right, I had to reposition my clamp there. I think I've got enough threads exposed to get that nut started. I chose to put the nut on the top because, well, I simply thought that was the right thing to do. I figured it was better for the head of the bolt to catch all the dirt and road salt and all that kind of jazz. All right, let's tighten that up. Let's see, is that a 13? Why, I guess it is. Let's get full engagement. Yep, there we go, starting to peek out. Now we can move on to the other side. And let's see if we can't finish this up here. I know it's counterintuitive because I'm not pressing the clamp here, but this whole affair is in sort of a bind, so it just doesn't really matter. All right, that should have us enough threads, hopefully. If not, we'll hammer on it again. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to have to touch up my paint. All right, now let's go ahead and tighten everything down. I've had this cheap, this is probably Japanese, CMR steel.H, whatever that means. Yeah, Japan. I've had this little cheap Japanese ratchet, socket wrench. I think pretty much my entire life, since the 80s at least. It just keeps right on working. I got a Craftsman around here somewhere. It works too. But hell, this one works. I'm guessing this doesn't have to be too terribly tight. because this situation is pretty tight already. All right, I'm gonna do the other side. I'll be right back. Yeah, a little bit of touch up won't hurt. Fool the naysayers anyway. Yeah. Not factory, but you know what? This car, you know, finding in a barn a couple of years ago, it's, well, no, it hadn't been that long. 18 months ago, I guess. You know, it's a fair sight better than it was. All right, let's move on. All right, let's move on and do something a little bit different. So, guess what? Guess who has an RV which is back from the shop? Big Bertha's back, folks. Yep, turns out the primary fuel injection pump on the 5.9 Cummins in the rear, well, it went kaput. So standard practice is replace the primary lift pump, replace the primary injection pump and the lift pump. And then they also changed out the ribbed serpentine belt because it was frayed up. And what else? One of the fuel filters. They replaced the bottom fuel filter because I didn't change that one. I only changed the top one. Anywho, runs fantastic once again. Now, one thing that I've never liked about this motorhome is these headlights. Quick trivia. Where do you think the RV industry gets headlights from? You think they design their own? A lot of you may already know the answer to this question, but no, they don't design their own. They source them from the automotive industry because, well, they already have lots and lots of tail lights and headlights. So let me give you a hint. What do you think these rear lights, these tail lights, where do you think they come from? Ford fans would probably spot this right away. This is from the late 1990s Ford F-150. It's blatantly obvious. And up front, the headlights are from a 98 to a 2002 Lincoln Town Car. Yeah, uptown, baby. Uptown. These are a little faded. I did polish them a little bit. They need a little additional polishing. However, none of that is relevant. For whatever reason, these bulbs, man, they are so dim. They're horrible. So today we're going to upgrade. I got these off Amazon. Seal Light, Maximus something LED. Anyway, they're LED upgrade bulbs. Yeah, let's go ahead and pop the hood and see how easy or hard we can make this on ourselves. Got up to about 95 today. Pop. There we go. All right, this front hood on this thing well, it's weird. Let's just leave it at that. Got y'all sitting on an angle, but you'll get over it. Anyway, so this hinges are kind of complicated. This thing there we go. It comes up, you tilt it in, and it wedges itself. And well, I could have done a better job, I think. Anyway, it's funny how they wanted to shape, you know, everything in the 90s was like, oh, it has to be round, right? Every car that was made in the 90s had to be round. This is a 99 RV, so yeah. Roundy, I guess. I don't know. They were smoking weed. I don't know what they were doing. All right, so there's where the offending lights are, back there. Let's get you guys set up on the tripod here. Now, I believe you just do it. There we go. Huh. That's pretty cool. And we got a little clip action. Let me get something to... I'll be right back. There we go. Just rip it right off of there. And then, there we go, that little ring there comes off. That little ring right there. All right, the only thing left holding in there, I think, is just a big O-ring. Yep, That's all it was. That is a whopper of a fat ass O-ring. Look at that thing. Yeah, nothing wrong with the bulb. It just, well, kind of sucks. Sylvania HB5 9007, made in the USA. We'll keep it, but I'm going to go LED and see how well that works. All right, there's our LED light. Looks fairly ominous. Hopefully it works. A little loose. The other one was really tight. I guess because it was really old. But this little ring here, hopefully should tighten it up. Let's see. Yeah. Well, that was easy. Now we just put the electrical connector back on. And I'm going to leave that off and just test the light. Let's just test it real quick. So, let's turn on the... Whoops, wrong way. Chassis. Real quick. And let's see, lights. Yep, that's an LED light, all right. Hot dog. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. And then I think what we'll do is do a little nighttime test. So the next time you see these lights come on, it'll be after dark. Well, it's dusk outside. I couldn't wait any longer. My curiosity is killing me. So anyway, and it's about to start raining. I didn't want to drag the GoPro out. So here we go. Holy cow. Yeah, we got lights. Yeah, man. This motorhome has got killer headlights now. That is awesome. I'll put a link to those bulbs in the description. All right, welcome back to the workbench, everyone. So a few days ago, I started looking around for some valve guide drivers to drive out the guides from this 117 motor. And got the old factory service manual out here, you know. 05-285 inspection and renewal of valve guides. You got a table here that shows you the standard sizing and the repair sizing. And my friend Peter out in Kansas sent me an additional document which had even more repair sizes which were available in addition to what's in this factory service manual. The basic bore in the head, once you remove the valve guide from the head, the basic bore is supposed to be anywhere from 14.030 to 14.035 millimeters. That's on the intake side, and on the exhaust side is 15.030 to 15.035. So now what that means is that any valve guide driver outer thingy needs to be a tad bit smaller than those basic bores. All right, makes sense. The valve guide driver has to be able to go all the way through the head. I got on Goodson.com, Goodson, and talked to their technician as well. One of their technicians talked to me on the phone and answered my lame questions because I'm not a machinist, you know, I'm just a guy. We got two sizes here. So we have PH2237-G, which will fit the exhaust. I can't remember. Oh, I think I put them in the wrong containers. I had them out earlier. Silly me. Yeah. I believe the 2239G is exhaust, and the 2237G is an intake. It doesn't matter. Just look it up on the website. Anyway, the dimensions of these drivers, this is the pilot. The end of this is the pilot. And this little stair step right here, that is from the edge of the stair step down to the pilot is a 1 degree differential, so that when you're driving the guide out, it doesn't mar up the guide. So that's kind of a special feature of these. Anyway, and these are designed for air tool use, thus I went off and bought an air chisel. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. So the pilot size for this one, the 2237G, is supposed to be able to go into a 9mm guide. So that means it is like slightly less. I forget what the dimension is. I think it's, instead of 9mm, it's 8 point something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And more importantly, well, just as importantly, is this OD is slightly smaller than the basic bore size in the head, which is 14.030. So we don't have to do anything to this one. On the other hand, this is the exhaust driver, and the pilot on this one is, of course, the right size. It's meant to be, it's meant for a 15 millimeter valve guide, and then again, it also has the 1 degree down tilt here on the collar. I guess collar, shoulder, I'm not sure. Stair step, I don't know what you call that. Anyway, but this dimension here on the exterior, the OD, is a little bit larger than the 15.030 that we need. So what we're going to do is eventually we're going to chuck this thing up in the drill over there, and I'm going to get a file and I'm going to ruin it. Basically, is what I'm going to do. I'm going to whittle that down some, okay? And we're going to get it just small enough to squeeze into that basic bore when we get ready to put her to work. So let me get the calipers out here. Dial indicator, caliper, I don't know what you call it. It's a measuring tool. 0, there we go. So let's look at our pilot. 10.8, that was the number I was trying to think of earlier. Yeah, it's meant to go into 11 millimeter guide, and it's 10.8. And I've already checked them, they fit in there just fine. I haven't checked this. This is the OD of the big part here. That's 15.49. And we need to go from, the book says 15.030. We need to go from 15.49 millimeters to 15.030. So that's going to require us to chuck this up in the drill press and put a file on it and try not to screw it up too badly. So, I mean, I suppose this exterior part here could look pretty gnarly, really, as long as it didn't tear up the head. So, let's, out of curiosity, let's take a look at the intake side. The pilot for the intake should be slightly less than 9 millimeters. And it is. It's 8.8 millimeters. And the big OD here is a 12.3537, which is about 2 millimeters smaller than the basic bore, which is 14.030. Nearly, it's almost exactly 2 millimeters smaller. So I think that'll be okay. I think it'll be just fine. So we've got these really nice little containers. Isn't that nice? Check that out. Slide together, because you know you don't want to damage it, right? So far my impression of Goodson products is pretty good. Okay, let's set that aside and let's move on. Let's take a look at this new air chisel I bought here. Now normally when I go to Harbor Freight and buy an air chisel, I've owned several over the years, what do I usually do? I buy the cheapest one in the store for 20 bucks. And it fails after, I don't know, the first use. And well, I decided not to do that this time. I decided to buy the most expensive one in the store. So let's see how well we do. Made by the Chief. I don't know what, it's probably the same company, they just make it better. But it is the biggest, baddest air hammer chisel thing they had in the store. Let's see what this thing looks like here. I know it's a heavy rascal. Look at that. Chief. The big Chief. Illuminate, lubricate. Oil daily. Warranty is void if you don't do that. And this part here that holds the whatever you're hammering, chiseling, normally it's just like a spring on the cheapies, but here we've got this really nice collar, and it's got a spring in between there. Not sure how you use it. I guess it just, yeah, there's some threads down in there. All right, well, let's chuck one of these things up and see what it looks like. Let's see, how does this work? Just like that. That's about the easiest thing ever. Most expensive one in the store for the win today. That is so ridiculously stupid simple. All right, what that means now is, I'm really paranoid about these. These are not exactly cheap either, so I gave $75, including the shipping, for these 2 valve guide drivers. And one of them I get to ruin. We need an air thingy right there. So let's go ahead and do that. And do I have enough on hands? No, I don't. I do what I always do and rob one from another tool. And get ourselves a little bit of this Teflon tape, whatever you call it. Is it Teflon? I guess it's Teflon. Alright, that should be plenty good. So let me go get the oil. It says to oil the tool daily. Well, let's do that. Shouldn't need that much. Yeah, about that much. Doesn't take a whole lot. We do have some directions. Let's see what this says just briefly. Save these instructions. It's a good tip. Safety, components. Here's a parts list. Tell you how to hook up your air and all that kind of stuff. All right. That's awesome. Is that too big for that? You gotta be kidding me. I'm doing something wrong. Let me go figure this out. I'll be back. Well, I tell you what, before we do that, let's just test the tool using the intake side. Whoa, dude. When it comes to air chisels, buy the most expensive one in the store. Do that. Damn. That ought to make quick business of these valve guides. If I could get this to fit in this tool. So anyway, let me go figure something out. All right, as usual, I'm an idiot because I don't know things. This is a retainer. I'm not sure why it's needed, but this has got a spring, you got a collar, you got 3 ball bearings, and they're retractable, like what's on like a socket wrench, you know. And you pull the trigger back, and those, well, the balls get out of your way. So yeah. So you pull the collar down like that, and you tighten it down like that. There we go. And just a sanity check, make sure the exhaust driver will actually function in the tool. Yeah, functions pretty well. Okay, I guess the next thing I have to do is trim this exhaust driver down. I'm not going to start doing any of this until I know that both of these are going to work. So I've got to trim this one down now. So let me go ahead and set up my my drill press over there. And I'm just going to chuck this up, and I'm going to put a file on it, and I'm going to trim it down. And I'm not going to show any of that. That's boring as hell. So anyway, I'll be back here in a minute. All right, we're back. So basically, this is really, really, really hard steel. So my file was inept. So I got the angle grinder out with a 60 grit. I forget what the grit is, but it was pretty gentle. So, and it's still fairly warm. But we have to get it smaller than 15.030, and down here on the end we are at 14.75. Pretty much, that's pretty much where we're at. 14.7, 14.5. Of course, I'm not a milling machine. I'm a human, so I can't be perfect. But anyway, down on the very end, it doesn't really matter because by the time you get up to there, I don't know how thick the metal is on the head. Not that thick, probably about like that maybe. So, but I trimmed it down all the way up here. So, anywho, I feel like we've got plenty of room to play with now. So that's 14.75, 14.8, something like that. So, it's small enough to go in that basic bore according to the service manual. So let's see how well we do. As usual, I started to get ahead of myself, and I got a comical text from Peter out in Kansas a couple of days ago. He goes, "Hey, what do you intend to do about those clips holding the valve guides in place?" And I said, no clue. And the reason why I said that, because I didn't know there was any. I'm glad he texted me and said, hey man, what are you going to do about this? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'll show you what he's talking about. He knows a lot more about it than I do. Right here, and you probably can't see it. Let's see if I use the cell phone, you probably could. At the base of the guide, there is a clip there holding that guide. And as I sit here and think about it, wait a minute, those clips are on this side. We're driving from the valve seat side, so that's not going to matter. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to take those off. That's to keep the valve guide from going deeper into the head that way. All right, in the service manual, it doesn't say anything about removing these little clips. It says nothing. Renewing the valve guide. It just simply says knockout valve guide by means of a knockout punch from the direction of the combustion chamber. So it's coming out that way, which is normal for all valve guides in pretty much any engine, I think. Machine the bores, use a plug gauge to do some measuring, do some reaming, use the broach for cutting, all that stuff we'll get to somehow eventually. And then when you put the new valve guide in, it says, I love how it says in step 10, inserting the valve guide. Undercool valve guide in liquid nitrogen. Well, I'm going to take my valve guides and I'm going to place them in the freezer in my little shop refrigerator and let them undercool in there. These translations kill me. Anyway, if no liquid nitrogen is available, heat the cylinder head in water to approximately 80 degrees C. So apparently you can do one or the other. I suppose if you did both, it would just fall right in. I don't know. And then coat the valve guide in tallow or oil. I don't have any tallow. We're going to use oil. And then do some other stuff. Anyway, so the little clips, I'm not going to worry about them. That's what I'm going to do. All right, wish me luck. I'm just going to give it a quick burst, see how well we do here. Holy cow. Made quick business out of that, buddy. Woo! I mean, like that. So it's not completely out, but I decided to stop because I didn't want to go hog wild. Most importantly, because I want to make sure that my tool is not going to tear up the bore in the head. Let me turn the air off. That leaky hose is driving me bonkers. All right, you can see that you can see the clip easily now, right? That black ring, that's a steel clip, and I'm assuming it keeps the valve guide from going that way. So the only thing I have to do now is ensure that I'm not going to tear up the bore with my modified tool. Yes, I could have bought heads. I could have probably bought some, completely refurbished heads and just said to hell with it. But I wouldn't be able to have all this fun now, would I? Some people like to go on trips. I like to do this. It looks like there's a stair step in that bore. It looks like a stair step, a ledge. I don't know what you call it in the machinist terms. Let's see what this does. I'm just going to go tappy tap tap. Or maybe I'm seeing something that's fooling me. Am I seeing something that's fooling me? All right, I think we're just going to go for the gusto and drive it out of there. And if I screw it up, hell, I'll fix it. Yeah, it's coming right on out. But I'm going to go slow and inspect and listen to my stupid air gun. There's a piece of metal on that one side there where it scraped the side of the, I think my punch scraped the side of the bore basically and bunched up a little metal on one side of that guide. It'll be all right. I'll tell you one thing, the chief is in town, baby. One exhaust valve guide removed. So that's what that looks like. Yeah. I guess I'll bag them and tag them and keep them in order and all that kind of jazz. All right, there's our bore down in there. And I think what happened was it fooled me. I think the tool clipped the very edge of the bore right there, because I see new metal, new aluminum, but everywhere else it's okay. So we're gonna have to ream the bores anyway as part of the process. So, I think we're okay. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and do the intake for that same cylinder. We're doing cylinder number 4, by the way, which is on the passenger side near the firewall, if you didn't know. All right, intake. Yep, coming right on out. Got to make sure you keep this thing straight up and down. Man, that was so damn easy. Sure is nice having nice tools. Now this intake bore looks a lot better. I did a better job on that one. So kind of screwed things up on the first go around. So I guess I'll just store these with the valves for now. And don't ask me why. All right, I feel a lot better about things now. I guess let's just go on down the line and take the rest of them out. Let's move on and see if we can't get the rest of these out of here. Man, this air hose may not last too much longer. I'm gonna have to do something different. On this exhaust side, it's kind of hard to deal with. If I get it off center, it starts to tear things up. All right, so let me it's that first little bit. If you don't get it perfectly centered, that one came out a lot easier than the first one, actually. So, all right, so that's number 3 exhaust. I've chipped a little bit off of the very edge of the beginning of the bore, but the rest of it is clean as a whistle. We're gonna have to ream them anyway, so let's just carry on. Let's see if you can see what I'm talking about here. Let's see, you see that shiny bit? That's actually just on the top of the bore. All right, I took off a little bit of aluminum, but the rest of the bore, I mean, that's only like 1/2 mil or maybe 1 mil down, that little shiny part. But the rest of it is fine. I guess it's all about education, learning the process. You know, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna try to do this one by hand and forego the air tool, see how well we do. Yeah, I did a much better job that time. I got it dead center. All right, that is number 2 exhaust. These valves are sodium filled, apparently. If you didn't know that. Yeah, I did a much better job on that one. Perfecto, baby! For the exhaust, our tool works, but pneumatically is problematic because it really, I mean, it's you have to really just be perfect with it. I tried to chamfer it a little more over on the drill press. I don't want to get it too small, it won't grip, you know what I'm saying? So let's take a look at that real quick. I could take that down a little more. I'm going to try to take that down just a smidgen more. I'll be right back. Took a little more metal off the tool there. I think on the exhaust side, we're just going to do a manual deal here, just to be as nice as we can be. I was kind of worried about screwing up my tool, you know, that right there. But I don't guess it'll matter. All right, there's number one, exhaust removed. Bore looking pretty good down in there. And let's put this back up. Grab our intake tool. We're going to go ahead and use the air power on the intake. .65 psi. This tool is just, well, it's a hoss. Let's put it that way. If you don't know what a hoss means, that's a southern term for very substantial and heavy duty. Yeah. 65 psi is more than adequate instead of the 90 that I had on there. Consequently, the valve guide is not going on the valve now because I think I've mushroomed the end of it a little bit with that tool. But we're getting new ones anyway. I guess it doesn't really matter. Oh, that's all of them. Yeah, I'm done. Ha-ha. The driver's side head here. Yeah, most definitely. You want the OD of your tool to be that 2 millimeter difference on the intake side is 2 millimeter less than the ID of the bore in there. That really works out a lot better. So in reality, for this exhaust tool, I could probably take this one down to about 13.5 to 14 millimeter on the OD, and that would probably work a lot better for this. So that was something I learned. But the minor damage that I made is just on the very end of the bore on like 2 of the exhaust. And it's just, I just took a little lip of aluminum off. So, but the rest of the bore is fine. I think it'll be okay. So, in my world anyway. All right, that's what we got. This is the driver's side head. And got the valve guides all removed. Try to get you some light so you can see what's going on down in there. They look pretty good. All right, so the service manual says the next step is to do some measuring. I don't have the tool to do that. Also do some reaming. There's a specifically sized ream to clean up the bore down in there. I guess you measure it again, and then there's something called a broach. Machinists, you all know what this stuff is. I don't. Broach is a cutting tool. It's a one-way cutting tool, and you have to have the very specific size specified in the manual, and then you put it in there and you pound it through, and it comes out the other end. It does some cutting. I have no idea if I'm going to have to do any of that. These may be perfectly fine the way they are. I simply need to measure them, and I don't have the tool to do that with me here. But the main goal was to get some good tooling, learn a little bit, and get these valve guides removed from these heads, and that was my goal for the weekend. So I've been out of count for a little while. We took a holiday and been working on other things, including the regular job, so it's been a little while. So what is it, 2 or 3 weeks since I posted a video, so yeah, it is what it is. All right, I've accomplished my goal for the weekend. I got these valve guides out. Next thing I've got to do is get something to measure these holes with, and then we'll go from there. So I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys know where it is. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy restoring your classic R107.